Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the NLC channel where we are going to be bringing you some more League of Legends. Yes, that's right, some more League of Legends as UniQ face off against Verdant. I'm Middlecott. To my left, to my right is a still image, I think, of it. Oh, it can move. Whoa.
It can move, it can talk, it can predict, it can be first in the prediction race, it can do everything to do with League of Legends, which makes me thoroughly useless.
Jack of all trades, master of none, I guess.
Can even play Predator Singed.
Predators... No. I've just instantly lost respect for you, veteran. Thank you very much. But on to the matter of our next game. It is going to be UniQ versus Vanir. UniQ, another one of our teams, sat at 2-8. Not really fighting for too much other than championship points. But Vanir, after a 2-0 week last week, they are in with a shot of sneaking into playoffs. So every win, so important for them.
Yeah, and, you know, every win is a chance for them to prove that in the next split, they can go that extra length, right? Unless they undergo some kind of insane levels of roster changes, I think this is a lineup that you look to invest into in the long term. Are these very known players? I'd argue probably not, right? Chris Berg's probably the guy most people are familiar with. He's had a fairly illustrious career up to this point. But the combination of this player, it's impossible to deny that even when they were losing, they worked, right? You can't point to a loss, really, where they were just getting stomped at every stage. Normally, it's just a question of the old Dignitas mantra of right up until they lose the game, they are winning. And now they're just winning, right? So really excited. And even though we focus on Chris Berg touch a lot because that bot lane seems to like to be quite volatile, like to be quite aggressive, have to shout out Ploxy, right? I've talked about Lingui, I've talked even a bit about Luca before, but Ploxy, all right, this is the meta for a player like him, right? He's very strong on these bridge kind of junglers. He's not a guy who farms too much or farms too little, not a guy who ganks too much or ganks too little. He's just making really good decisions based around his team compositions. And when we got that voice comms, him and Touch had such a say in how the team was playing out their fights. Seems like a really, really good player for them to have. The Caitlyn ban might hurt a little bit then, to be honest, because Chris Berg loves that Caitlyn, but I guess we're never seeing that again. The Ashe ban's kind of questionable for me because I think Vanir should like to play those kinds of champions, but that's not really how they roll. It's their Lucian Nami kind of team, right? So we're probably going to see that. At least Maokai bans coming out from UniQ. Everybody in the NLC today just wants me to praise their bands, to be honest, so I'm glad about that. And the Jace ban coming out as well. Jace is actually a pretty big deal in the NLC compared to a lot of other regions, right? It's even bigger deal here than the LEC. I love Jace. He used to be much more of a skill-based champion than he is now, but I do love seeing that champ as an option for these teams because it enables a lot of junglers that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. And with Ploxy, I'm interested if they were able to do something with that, but obviously we're not going to see it this game. What is open, though? Pool 227's Akali is open. He loves to pick that up. All right, but right now Vanir are saying we don't really need champions to take on you, and UniQ are like, well, we're not going to use any either. All right.
Well, I mean, we are a minor ERL, so we don't have access to champions queue, so we can't have champions on the draft either. Like, it's just how it works.
We don't have the money for it, actually, to be honest, right? We're actually going to more independent areas to settle these feuds, right? Like with Ibe's upcoming boxing tournament, the NLC's taking a leaf out of his book, and what Vanir and UniQ are actually going to do is meet up in the back alleys of Croydon and have a fist fight to the death for the points.
Why would they be in Croydon? Why would they be in Croydon? Vanir's in Norway and UniQ's in Sweden.
Well, because it's less chance that the police will be bothered about it because they're more worried about the consequences of being involved. So just go to the place where the whole area has gone into administration. Oh my god, I prefer this as well! This is the best select! This is the best champion select, though. Stay here, production. Don't, like, even if you fix the other one, stay with this. This is... Only the real OGs appreciate this champ select, alright? Only the real OGs appreciate this, alright? I love this. Okay, so you have Sejuani locked in immediately. The Annie locked in at this point is very interesting because the Annie is something that I would think Vanir would be prioritizing because Pool 227's pool is actually heavily... Ooh. That's very interesting. Pool 227's pool is actually vulnerable to the Annie pick. So if they see Luca and solo queue practicing the Annie, or they've managed to acquire some information on Luca practicing it in the scrim environment, then the Annie taking it away and being added with the Zerion bot lane perhaps would be a good way to enable Pool 227's pool. The Akali gets banned out by Vanir despite the Annie presence because they're aware this could just be them saying, we know you can play the Annie into us, so we're going to save Pool 227's biggest pick by picking the Annie away first. Annie into Akali is a really good matchup for the Annie. This is not the heavily buffed Annie patch, right?
I believe not. I believe not.
We're starting 1B, right?
I know. I think we might be 13.3 actually.
In that case, this is ridiculous, Annie, and I'm not quite sure I haven't seen more of it. But yeah, no, the Annie pick there was really good for them, probably going towards Peterson, but now with the Akali ban, I'm interested to see if we're going to see Pool 227 on the Annie. Not really a style of champion, but I need to see more of it.
This could be a mid Renekton, right? We've seen Pool 227 play Renekton mid before, I believe, just trying to think off the top of my head. So we could see this flexed between mid and top. Gragas kind of safe into anything and isn't really going to care what he's going to be laning against. So that means that you are sort of flipping the blind pick over to the other side. With that Gnar locked in, though, we're getting a Gragas mid.
Yep, so Gragas mid would also be good into Pool 227's pool. The issue with Pool's pool is that Pool's pool is very vulnerable to any kind of anti-assassin, anti-engage pick, and the Gragas is a big one. Especially you can go burst kind of builds on him here. His E just interrupts the all-in potential from a lot of Pool's pool. And now we're going to see him on the Victor, right? Victor, he's off of comfort here. We could maybe see if he can extend his champion pool to these kinds of mages. But what we do know for a fact is that he can't go his usual picks in towards Luca. Again, the Annie takeaway is really good if they add that info, but Luca clearly came here prepared with an anti-pool pool. Only so many times I can say that.
You're really getting some decent mileage out of it. And whilst it's like clearly a tech option into pool, it's still Gragas. He's still going to provide that cast in the team fights and that additional level of disruption, as well as a load of gank setup. I mean, you've got that Sejuani here. There's definitely a world where Luca just flash body slams onto pool, combo that with the CC from the jungler, and there's very little that the Victor can do.
But in the early levels, Pool has the ability to just kite him with his range advantage. The things that you like into something like a Gragas is the Talia, for example, right, which we saw in the LEC finals. Easily able to harass the Gragas at a range where Gragas can't just E and full burst. So I'm interested to see what it is that Luca goes in terms of build here. Nice grayscale. Oh, we're back. Because if you go for your full burst build, there is a chance that Victor will be able to play around that, but I'm not entirely sure the ranges. He might just be vulnerable to Gragas here at every point, in which case you do see the burst build from Gragas. Otherwise, it's ability haste. You're building either ability haste build or you're building burst build as Gragas. It's not really viable to do both, so interested to see what the choice is. Miss me of Rod of Ages, you're basically building a useless Gragas, but he may have to do that here. That being said, if Gragas is in an uncomfortable position, it's likely because Pool is in an incredibly uncomfortable position, and whenever we've seen UniQ do really well, it has been through Pool 227 on those champs. So this could already be enough. Yeah, I'm excited for this game. Clearly a game plan coming in against UniQ, even though UniQ are the ones that we wanted to see coming in with a solid game plan. The thing with the Victor, though, is that if Victor wins out early levels against Gragas, there's no excuse for them not to play mid-jungle into bot side here, except for the fact that they have a Zeri. But the Annie will be very useful, and if this is the buffed Annie, level 1 will be very interesting, because Annie with the AoE stun W at level 1, right? Nothing on the map really contests with that here. So we may look for a 5-stack defensive play from Vanir early on, but Annie can actually deal with that as well. So very interested to see the game plans from UniQ with that Annie and with that potential mid lane.
And I mean, in the context of the draft that Vanir have put together for themselves, you're looking at AP Gragas to deal the damage and then the Xayah as well, and that's kind of it in terms of what they've built for themselves. And Annie with the ability to provide instant CC with the Tibbers, that could be absolutely great against Chris Bergs. He can't get the Feathers Fly off in time and escape from that. And at that point, Vanir are trying to play out the rest of the team fight with a little bit less damage. We are on to the rest for our second game of the evening. Vanir, want to win here to keep the pressure up on Verdant, to keep their chances of sneaking into the playoffs alive. UniQ here for championship points and to show off that they're still a team that you can't underestimate.
Both bot lanes have done the same kind of ward to indicate that they don't think they win this lane, when definitely Unique's ward should be a bit further up because the Nautilus should be playing at the back foot there. Nautilus's ward makes a lot of sense, but unsure about Unique's bot lane ward. Does look like Peterson has full stack level 1, so there could have been an early W play from him. Looks like they're moving up now. Maybe the ward is there for this possible level 1 play, but yeah, you'd expect UniQ to have the priority early. If Nautilus gets an early hook on them, that's how Vanir can do something, but it should be difficult for them to do that unless they just both step up like this. No, it's still very difficult for him to do. He's worried about Annie just countering with the W onto Chrisberg as well as touch. So it should be an easy bot lane push for UniQ, in which case that ward's in the wrong place. Nautilus is going to have brush control of the brush closest to his tower, which is where they're going to be playing the next wave from if UniQ have this level of priority. Pool 227, you can see, is winning on the wave initially, possibly, I mean, definitely pushing a bit too fast here, so could be looking at a second wave crash, and that shows he's not quite as experienced on these range versus melee matchups as he is in melee versus anything matchups. Vanir also with... Yep, go on.
The Akali is a pretty mean thing, but I do want to touch briefly on Antwer. We haven't really talked about this Trundle pickup actually too much throughout the early stages. Obviously, a bit of an older tech into the Sejuani, and Bloxy there with the phase rush is going to be a bit more firm against the Trundle if they ever end up coming to blows, but he may just be looking for a gank in the mid lane. This is maybe something that we could see. Paul hovering in the middle of the lane. Luca level 3, not going to blow the flash. They're still going to get a chunk down onto the Victor, but without that defensive summoner spell for the UniQ mid laner, a repeat gank is definitely a possibility.
Paul's still there on third wave, forced to stay there on the fourth wave now because of the Sejuani gank. He was actually pushing at a commensurate rate. UniQ, they are on the pushing wave on bot lane. Vanir went pretty aggressive for the level 2 advantage trying to get it, but ultimately the wave's in a good position for UniQ here. Even if Sejuani comes to gank, it should be a simple 2v3 scenario for UniQ. They're going to get the crash, Victor's going to get the crash on mid, and now UniQ have full map control despite that early gank. Let's see if anything gets done with it, or if they just accept that level of early advantage and just try to get a stronger laning phase on the next set of rotations.
So do you feel like UniQ are in a position where kind of just chilling is going to be fine for them? Because I look at stuff like Renekton and Trundle, and Play-by-Play Brain thinks these are champions that you want to be using to fight early, but then I look at the Victor and the Zeri and think that 3 items is a very good spot for them as well.
Yep, in terms of damage, obviously UniQ's top side not so good, but the reason that we love Renekton is because even if he isn't the main carry of the game, he's still useful in terms of peel later on. He can layer on stuns, that sets up a lot of stuff for UniQ, and he can also just sit on the rest of UniQ's faces and stun anyone who tries to get on top of them. He's going to be useful here even if he isn't steamrolling. Peterson using his advantage to go top side here. Zeri's going to be safe on this wave, going to be safe on the next wave, and the UniQ bot lane, they're leveraging this advantage they got off the early crash.
Antwer was just millimeters away from the chomp, trying to get a chase down onto Block. He's still level 3, does get level 4 just off that ward, and hasn't been able to find too much access into these lanes as of yet. I am intrigued how Vanir are going to be playing around that mid lane, because you saw how free Pedersen was to move up into that mid lane, and Antwer helping out Paul as well. So recognizing that even though this guy is not necessarily on a champion that we traditionally associate with him, he's still a very good spot for UniQ to carry from, and he needs to be protective.
Yeah, bot lane advantage, Peterson uses that to walk topside. He is bot side on time for the point where Zoe would feel threatened, right? Where the wave is now, Nautilus could be hiding in the bottom brushes or in the river brush, and it becomes very difficult for Cyrax to push out, but Peterson is here on time for it. That roam topside allowed Renekton to get an early back over the Gnar. That's actually advantageous for him in terms of items, and means the Renekton could maybe try to push through into an advantage. Victor kept the wave in a nice spot, but even though he's recalling now, Gragas could try to burst the wave, so Victor comes in with the teleport to try to dissuade Luca from doing so. But look at Victor's items, look at Gragas's items. Victor is clearly a bit ahead, and with the Dark Seal, is showing that he wants to be able to fight on the next push. If the Gragas can get some damage,
oh, hook in the bot lane. Pedersen caught out, is going to flash away. That should be enough to keep him alive. Returning a little bit of damage down onto Chrisberg is Cyrax, but not enough to trouble the Vanir AD Karyus. Found himself relatively even in the early stages. Chrisberg, a guy that usually comes out of lane with at least an 800 gold advantage. As Antwer maybe applying some pressure to the bot lane, but not much for now.
I mean, he's applying pressure just by being bot side at all. You were in a position where Cyrax and Pedersen had cannon over Chrisberg and Touch, so that was a good time gank by Sejuani, but by surviving that gank, both the Victor and the Trundle leaning bot side meant that they would be able to contest for a good wave state. Nautilus and Zaya decided they didn't want to risk a dive, and so they started contesting the wave again and pushing it back into them. But as a result, Pool227 and Antwer have effectively helped in fixing what could have been a bad state of the game for their bot lane. And that's what we wanted to see, right? We wanted to see mid-jungle start to play together. Is it perfect? No. But it's better than nothing.
Oh, and this is better than anything for Vanir. They're finding a bit of damage onto Antwer, but they're a little bit low themselves. Neither team really wanting to commit for anything around the dragon. 7 minutes in, still no one going down.
Yep, wave reset on the bot side means that Cyrex and Pedersen can come in and defend, and Chrisberg and Touch could continue to apply pressure, but the wave is actually overall better for Cyrex and Pedersen now. Victor also allowing the wave to move back into him, but it looks like Gragas might be able to get a crash off. So on the next phase, you're looking for Trundle to help Pool227 get this wave out, which is definitely bouncing away from him now. And on that, let's see what they do with regards to bot lane or top lane, right? Top lane was able to get a good back off, but because so much action's happened on bot side, he hasn't been allowed to get all-in plays against the Gnar, which makes Gnar a very, very safe little Yordle, right? In those situations, in those weak side situations, he's not too bothered. Here, yes, he loses bone plating, but realistically, he doesn't have to do anything on this wave because it's pushing hard into him. He just trades really heavily on towards the Renekton because his jungler's top side and he knows Trundle isn't, so he's safe to do so. This will then allow Proxy to get the Herald, but Trundle, right, he's going bot side despite no camps being up there. This means either he's reacting to the Sejuani knowledge to try to make a play for this Drake, or he's intending to do something around this bot side that, you know, they think makes it worth not going for his camps on top. He's a bridge jungler, not a farming jungler. His bot lane is recalling. I'm confused what it is that he wants to do here. It looks like he was just worried Drake was being done, and now he figures it could be a free opportunity, but Pedersen's behind.
I think he was sort of trying to avoid the vision that Vanir had with the little scuttle crab there, providing that vision shrine. But if Touch moves over, he's going to spot this one out, and UniQ realizing that the jungler may be at risk if he continues on this Drake, so pulling a couple of people over. Ploxy and Touch are here as well. There is a lot of engaged potential on Vanir, and actually, even though they're 3v4, they've been able to force UniQ away. They are going to get picked here through onto Antwer, but the Trundle is way too tanky. Ploxy's going to get the Drake, but Touch dies for first blood, and Chrisberg flies the feathers into the air, flashes back to get away. The cask saves Pedersen life, but Ploxy will not be so lucky. In the bottom lane, UniQ find 3 kills.
Okay, that's really good for UniQ. Now we could actually see how strongly UniQ play, because honestly, that set of rotations wasn't optimal for them, right? There used to be an argument back in 2019, 2020 discourse about whether you open these kinds of plays to Drake in lane or in river. And you had some teams going into lane and some teams going into river first. UniQ went into river and didn't even bother with lane, which allowed Gragas here for Luca to move down before the Victor. But Cyrax and Pedersen, we've praised these guys before as a bot lane, play the fight so well, try to isolate away from Luca, and are able to herd their opponents, and then basically slaughter them before Luca's able to have an impact. And then when Victor comes in, Luca is simply pinned in the middle of a numbers disadvantage and falls as well. So well played as a fight by UniQ, but still in terms of macro concepts, we'd like to see more from them. But this means we definitely will see more opportunities from UniQ to show us that they want to play these kinds of dynamics, river to lane, lane to river, and start considering them further on into the game. Normally we see Vanir winning these early fights, right?
Peterson might get caught out here. Oh, there was an attempt at playing the top laners. Peterson was just clearing a tri-brush ward there and maybe could have gotten caught out. Actually, Ploxy, if you look there on the minimap, is making his way through the bottom lane. I think he is just going to be spotted on a ward, though.
Yeah. Realistically, if they engage on Peterson there, they just got one shot, by the way. Just to be clear.
I haven't seen an Annie in a while.
Like, please, by all means, do so. Like, Annie, look where Annie is. Look where Nautilus is. If Nautilus wanted to hook Annie, he'd just go in now. But he's aware what's going to happen if he tries, right? Like, it's not real to just engage on the Annie at this point. If this truly...
Oh, there we are. There we are. There comes the engage. As soon as Bloxy walks away, UniQ take full advantage. The Ignite will burn down. Touch, ticking, boom, double kill for Cyrax.
Can we say something about UniQ from this game so far? They know how to pick fights, all right? And that's good. Is the macro there? Probably not. Do they really need expert tier macro to start to make a sense of improvement? No, they need to start playing together as a team and have clear coordinated plans, and they have that here, right? Antwer's playing very selflessly right now. Peterson, though, for my money, has been the MVP of the game so far. Nice, not too bothered by this. There's no way Lingui can freeze the wave, and there's no way he can actually... Oh, wait, he is going to.
I think he's just going to kill him.
Dude, the guy has flash and ult up, by the way.
It doesn't matter,
actually
apparently.
a couple of seconds away. He was a couple of seconds away, but I felt like Nias was safe there. But yes, apparently he's not. There you go. Blows. Sometimes it do be that way.
It's a Quantum of Solace for an early game, which hasn't been great for Vanir. And reminder, they need every win that they can get if they want to keep up the pressure on Verdant for that fourth playoff spot. And UniQ, they've sort of come out swinging, right? 3-0-2 now for Cyrax on the Zeri, who's going to scale absolutely extraordinarily, but is very, very strong right now. And it's happened against the bot lane in Chrisberg and Touch, who have been characterized by their ability to get leads out of this early game.
Yeah, but they are Nautilus into a ranged champion, and they didn't find anything level 1. So UniQ had that advantage, but the really impressive thing is how Peterson used it. If you want to talk about someone fixing the map, playing macro, and playing really well as a picker, as a fighter, Peterson's ticking every single box right now, and has been very impressive the whole game, which is good, because we like this bot lane of Cyrax Peterson. So one of them being so easy to highlight in total, and Cyrax playing the one big fight of the game really well so far.
I think we might be getting a fight in the bot lane. Peterson, very, very low, ignited, running away as fast as he can, but not fast enough. He's not going to care too much as he just gets another kill for his AD carrying with Antwer stood between Chrisberg and his tier 1 tower. This means more plates are going to be going in favor of Cyrax. Has actually fallen off now. We could be seeing first tower going solo to Azeri.
That's 2 waves that Chrisberg is just never going to see. Yes, and he died for the play, but the loss of XP, the loss of tower, and the massive gap Cyrax is going to have over Chrisberg more than makes it worth. You may think that was caster cursed, and maybe I'm giga coping, but definitely that play was worth the death from Annie, and it puts UniQ in a massive tempo advantage for the rest of the game, right? Now, Cyrax resets, could look to move topside, could look to move into mid lane, but they have full priority on this Herald after the Drake, though it looks like maybe they're trying to just trade the Drake for that Herald, which would not be such a strong idea, because Herald would be Vanir's way of getting tempo back into the game, and we know Vanir, if they're good at anything, they're good at getting ahead on steps in the game.
Antwer will be able to take down that Drake. Let's have a little look at the Rift. No, let's not have a look at the Rift Herald.
Ahead.
Yeah, he has been able to get on map, and actually Ploxy hasn't been able to take this Rift Herald low at all. UniQ are responding to the play. They are double dipping.
No flash.
Got the Drake, and now they're going to be able to get the Herald as well. There's no way that Vanir can keep doing this.
Peterson has flash in a few seconds, and he has the ult there. This is a very dangerous Annie with a lot of follow-up.
Rift Herald goes down, is going to be picked up by Neas. Double stun from Lingui with the Gnar! They are able to kill the Renekton on the backside. Chrisberg opening up with the feathers, getting the chunks down onto Pedersen and getting a kill onto the UniQ support. A little bit of a fumble on the play coming through from UniQ, and Vanir are more than happy to pick up that extra gold.
Yeah, Pedersen's ultimate just wasn't really it then. You know, something that we can say about Lingui basically every game is if anybody knows the good all-in engage opportunities, it's him. He's always been that guy for Vanir that's able to explode the game at certain points, and he's done it here. I feel like this Herald area is always where Lingui ends up shining. He's kind of mastered this particular point on the map with various engage champs, but very, very scary player to be up against if he has the ability to play make. Cyrax, though, he's still doing pretty well economically for himself, and Peterson, he's going to want to prove himself after being unable to find a huge game-winning stun in that fight. He's had a really good game so far, and they honestly only got the Herald because he was able very simply to just get topside before the Nautilus was, apply pressure, force them off. So even though they made that play on him, still decent play overall from Pedersen, but Lingui, definitely MVP of that fight.
Absolutely. This is a pretty dang long replay, veteran. There we go. We're back.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, is there something I'm supposed to see here, or are we in, like, is this a live game?
I don't know. Oh, Pedersen ghosting, getting the stun. Chrisberg ulting just in time to prevent himself from getting locked down, but it is UniQ playing on the front foot for now. Poxy is going to be diving over the wall. That is a double route coming through, and Touch trying to get a pick as here comes Antwer with the ult.
Oh, Lingui!
Getting a double stun, actually getting a killing spree onto Pedersen, saving that engagement for Vanir, but the health bars not quite there. The tower is still going to be falling down. Depth charge, getting a knock up onto Cyrax. Here comes Luca. Flash is online, but no explosive cast. But comes through onto Neas, and Touch will die for his aggression. Lingui still going forward in the mini Gnar form, playing with fire, but not getting burned.
Lingui and Touch found some really nice picks, but the damage wasn't quite there on the follow-up to execute on it. Still, impressive engage by Lingui on the flank there. Managed to get behind two of them, knocked Pedersen, knocked Cyrax into the wall there. Could have been game-winning in any other situation where the damage was there for Vanir, but where is that damage, right? You have a lot of Aegis Gragas, you have a Gnar, the Gnar basically being the engager there. All you really have here for damage is the Xayah, and the Xayah is only on the Gale Force right now, not an item famous for its damage properties, and Xayah not exactly a hyper carry. Sure, they can get these kinds of engages, but if they're not able to get somebody to the point where they can deliver serious burst or serious DPS, and honestly burst on those kinds of engages, it's going to be for naught, and Cyrax is just going to have the time of his life in the middle of that fight, and Pool 227 is going to be able to show that he can deal damage on more than just the Akali.
227, yeah, not in shop, smart stuff. Oh, still going to get hit by the explosive cast. Bloxy going over the wall, but not investing the Glacial Prison, is now going to use it to provide a little bit of disengage as Neas was teleporting to the play.
Yeah, I mean, looks a little bit risky, but instead Pool 227 didn't even have to burn a flash there. The ultimate will be on a cooldown, but there isn't something immediately to fight for. 45 seconds until the next fight. The Annie will have her cooldowns up. Very possible that the Victor will have the necessary stuff up.
Luca?
No way Luca dies here. No way. We're good. I mean, if he died here, that was two top lane plays where the guy had flash and just decided to die.
But he will be fine for the time being. And actually for Vanir, after that kind of disaster of a bot lane play early on, where Cyrax ended up 3-0-2 out of the whole end of things, the game sort of stabilized. The gold lead, not massive in favor of UniQ, and Vanir have definitely been able to do their own things. That tower falling is going to be great for them to help apply a little bit more pressure around the bottom side of the map, as we are going to get a Hex Tech Drake spawning, so something that both these teams will want to fight for.
Yeah. The, well, is it Hex Tech? Yeah, it is. Huh, the top left says Ocean for me. Yep, okay. So Hextech and the Soul in general is going to be a really, really good one for either team to get, especially Vanir, because Vanir are so reliant on Chrisberg right now, right? And they definitely don't want this Sunny to have even lower cooldowns. Getting Chrisberg to the point where he can carry the rest of the game, that's what Vanir want. Maybe this Gragas is going to end up with some decent damage later, but right now it's all about the Chrisberg show.
There's 2 items on Cyrex. UniQ are going to commit for this, and Vanir are going to start to make their way over. Lingui is TPing towards the Baron. This is an attempt at a start, but then pulling away. UniQ sensing an opportunity and disengaging when that opportunity expires. Okay, that was decent stuff.
I mean, there are teams you could sneak that against, but Vanir invented this play in the NLC. They coded it into the game, and they're going to know you have that chance.
And where you're not allowed to clear Krugs. Luca with his first kill of the game, and Cyrex very, very swiftly taking the blast cone out of there. Vanir in an instant really have established control of this topside jungle, and hey, if you've got topside jungle control, you can start thinking about doing the Baron.
Yeah, for sure. But do they have a particularly fast Baron? It's going down very, very slowly to the point where Peters and Cyrex,
yes, there's no TP.
They can actually come here and contest.
4,000 HP. Pedersen has the flash, he has the Tibbers, he could go over the wall, but he's not going to stun anybody. Ploxy still able to get the Baron, and the feathers pulled back, cut through UniQ. Paul will die on the backside of the fight, and after a great early game, Vanir pull it back in the mid stages, get the Baron, and get a huge fight.
Oh, wow. Everybody just moving out of where the Annie ended up launching her ultimate. Vanir, they had a very slow Baron. Even though UniQ were far away, they would actually be able to contest that, and the contest ends up being all for naught. But are we sure this is a Vanir game? This is a Verdant pattern of play, all right? Make some errors in the early and come back through a Baron later on. Wrong V team, guys, wrong V team. But Vanir, you know, I think it's good to see that they're not just a snowball dependent team, right? That they can come back into the game later on through some nice plays and definitely coordination in these fight scenarios. It was a really coordinated dodge of the Annie there, and it was good for them to recognize that UniQ had the opportunity to do the Baron in the first place, right? So good series of plays by Vanir to come back in, and it shows us that these aren't just a one-note team either.
And I tell you what, something that you're going to have to implement in the playoffs is the ability to come back from disadvantages, right? When you are playing a game, a match over multiple games, playing that full best-of-3, best-of-5 series, you're inevitably going to be in positions where you're not at the strongest point. But Vanir, they pull themselves together. They go, actually, we are not out of this. We can still make plays. We can catch out Antwer. And the hook doesn't even have time to connect before the trundle is deleted. Vanir will take down the mid lane tower. They'll take down Paul in the side lane. A solo kill for Lingui. And with that Victor dead, the wave clear options are falling apart. Vanir push into the base.
Lingui is the greedy of NLC, right? Like, he understands when all-in options are really, really strong for his team, to a very strong extent, right?
Double stun from Pedersen. Cyrex chased into his fountain to his doom. Neas is the last one left alive for UniQ, and he will not be alive for much longer. Respawns started to come through. 8 seconds for Paul 227, so he could provide a little bit of wave clear. Vanir, do they look for the end? No, they're back away. They'll take the lead that they've got for themselves over the last 10 minutes. They will recall very, very happy.
This is going to be a decently timed win for Vanir, and it almost feels like UniQ weren't in the driver's seat for 22 minutes of the game, given that we're 25 minutes in now, and Vanir are just looking to close on the next rotations. So, very impressive comeback by them. Lingui, definitely, for my money, looks to be getting MVP status here. Nice timings on all of his engages, on all of his all-ins, as has become characteristic of this player.
UniQ, I'd recommend not walking into your topside jungle right now.
Don't walk anywhere outside of the base, to be honest.
Well, this is the brilliant thing that Vanir have done, right? They've taken those inhibs in the mid and the bot lane and gone, actually, those lanes are going to push for 3. We don't need to do anything. We are all about the top lane. We are all about getting this one shoved in. UniQ responding, but a dive could be on.
I mean, many teams would go for that Drake that just spawned, but Vanir know that if UniQ go for it, they lose the game.
Oh, yeah, but they just completely bomber Pedersen into his death. Stun into the wall by Lingui on the backline, and Nias is actually able to find access onto Chrisberg and remove the Zai, but with 3 dead on his team, what could the Crocodile do? Vanir doing their best Steve Irwin impressions, hunting him down across the rift, taking him out, and of course, it's Lingui who gets the kill.
Just don't give Lingui engage. Just don't give Lingui engage. Like, he's seriously good on it. Every single one of these fights, he's finding flanks and he's finding multiple people in the backline, multiple crucial, critical targets in the backline, and he's winning the fights for his team. Though obviously the opening Gragas cast by Luca eliminated Pedersen. Pedersen had a really good start to the game, really nice map movements and really nice in 2v2, but this Annie has not been allowed to play League of Legends after the opening points, especially after the Baron went poorly for them. Yeah, looks to be a fairly clean Vanir win if you ignore the first 22 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and a great recovery, I guess, from Chrisberg and Touch, who are both 0 and 2 in the early stages, to be able to come back. That Zaya now on 3 items, and she's going to hurt regardless of her status as a champion. We're going to have Hextech Soul Point coming through for Vanir, but I wouldn't be very surprised if the game ends a little bit before that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, Vanir are on Soul Point. Surely UniQ are sweating about that now. It is worth pointing out that UniQ have actually managed to defend that top side, and these inhibitors are going to have to respawn eventually. If they're able to maintain this, maybe it's possible for them to do something around the respawning Baron. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously unlikely that UniQ will make a full comeback into the game. That being said, they have Victor, they have Zeri, they do have tools to win fights later on, and eventually Vanir do have to break that top side inhibitor and that top side inhibitor tower, so they do have to fight at least one more fight to win the game, and UniQ are progressively getting stronger. 12k gold on the Zeri, despite being on the losing team right now, actually very even with the opposing carries, and Victor may be a bit behind on the Gragas, but the damage and the consistent DPS he can do is incomparable to what Gragas does. So there are tools available for UniQ. If they get a fight in a choke like this, their champion's actually relatively good.
Ooh. Hold on, actually they may get that fight, as Vanir have kind of fluffed a load of their engages, a load of their ultimates. It may not matter in the end, though, as Antwer is taken incredibly on the front side. And the gold lead, just a little bit too much, I fear, Veteran. It is only a single pick onto the jungler of UniQ, but that's going to signal Vanir heading back towards that Baron. Pedersen caught out in his jungle and will die for the 7th time this game.
Yep, I mean, this should be the final push, right? Pull 227 alone without an ultimate, that's not enough to defend this top tower. The mid towers are constantly being bombarded. Mid inhibitor will respawn now, but they don't have the players anymore to make the defense that they wanted.
Oh, no, who would be a top laner in a game like this? The game has fallen away, sort of outrun Nias on the Renekton, who really hasn't been able to contribute as much as he would have liked. Got that pick onto Chrisberg a couple of fights ago, but aside from that, the Renekton really hasn't worked out. Smart flash away from Paul to get out of that ultimate. Luca flashing under the tower, actually feeding a shutdown over. Okay, you really don't want to be giving gold to Cyrax. Lingui going mega. Engage potential is there, but UniQ are running forward. It's going to get turned around, and Paul is dead. Huge Nah from Lingui, knocking them into the base, knocking them down. A double for Chrisberg, and that will be it. A triple for Isaiah in the end. Ploxy grabbing one for himself as well. Nias will be respawning, but it will just be seeing the shambles of his base fall around him in just under 30 minutes. Vanir get the win versus UniQ.
It looked so good for UniQ for so long, though. The bot lane was actually doing really well. Pedersen was being very, very impactful for a lot of the game. The KDA doesn't reflect that, but he was very impactful until the contests. And when the contests started to happen, when Vanir were all grouped together, they didn't just know how to win the fights, in massive parts thanks to Lingui, who's definitely the MVP of this game, but they knew how to capitalize on those small tempo advantages they had. Once Vanir were in charge, in control of the game, they were able to ram it all the way through into the enemy nexus.
And it almost gives me echoes of the criticisms that we had for Vanir in the early weeks, right? UniQ, they got a decent size advantage onto their bot lane marksman, but then they absolutely weren't able to make it work in the end. Credit to Vanir, but also an issue for UniQ.
With a crucial difference, UniQ actually did outscale. With Vanir, it was like you can't afford to make any real mistakes with your compositions, because if you make them, your compositions don't win fights anymore. This was again a composition that shouldn't be winning fights this late into the game, and yet they're still able, just through consistently strong map play and very, very good picks and engages, to win fights with them regardless. That's the crucial difference between Vanir's set of improvements and any other teams, and the criticism we leverage against UniQ here versus the criticism we leverage against Vanir. Sure, you can somewhat say the same things, but once you add the fact that UniQ are actually favoured the longer the game goes on for, it becomes much more impressive that Vanir are able to make a comeback at all.
It's very good stuff for them, and obviously with that win, they are keeping up the pressure on Verdant. That was so close, because you saw what Pedersen was looking for, but Vanir responding very, very well to prevent him from getting that engage off. And yeah, I think I want to echo what you talked about. The Annie, the score didn't look great, but I think the idea behind the pick made a lot of sense. Yeah,
and the execution behind the pick was really, really good until the point where Vanir were firmly in charge.
It's a rough spot for them, to be sure. I'm intrigued, though, by this Gragas mid that came out from Luca, because we didn't really see it played towards too much. We did see some early moves towards the mid lane from sort of members of both teams, but it didn't really become a focal point for this team at any point. Do you think it's something that they could have played towards more on the Vanir side, or do you think that just leaving Luca alone was fine?
No, leaving Luke alone was fine. Crucially, it forced pool 227 on an uncomfortable pool, right? If the Annie takeaway was with the knowledge that they were intending to counter-pick pool 227 with it, the Gragas was done with the same thing, and pool 227 was instead on a pick that he's not as comfortable and doesn't have the kind of playmaking potential. And there have been times where UniQ have relied on pool 227's playmaking potential. Gragas nullified all of that. I think just picking the champion at all, Luca had done his job.
Yeah, and looking over to UniQ, we talked about the issue they had transitioning that lead, but I think it's really insightful that it was when we came to those team fights that we saw them falling down. The engages, the way that they've played out those big engagements hasn't really been crisp for a lot of this year, and I think this game is a really, really good example of how that can hurt you, even if you are coming into that fight in an advantageous position.
Yeah, I mean, Lingui was able to get flanks constantly. These guys weren't clearing their vision behind them or around them before they engaged on these fights. They kind of felt like pushing for the next objective, but didn't consider anything else. You could say outside of those engagements, you could see outside those engagements, and even when things are advantageous for them, that this was still true. The opening Drake fight that they won, Luca was still able to be there first. They won it because their bot lane was able to isolate people within the team fights, but that wasn't a fight they should have won, because all they thought about was let's go Drake, and not these are the steps towards going Drake. Same with when they go to towers and Lingui gets a flank, or when they do Herald and Lingui gets a flank, or when they breathe and Lingui gets a flank.
So I guess coming out of this game, Veteran, we've talked about its potential implications for playoffs. Looking at the Vanir that we've got here, compared to the Vanir that was in our minds 40 minutes ago, are we happier with what we're seeing from them?
Yes. They're sturdier than they were before. They're more anti-fragile than they were before. We're not so worried that if they don't get their game plan off, the game is basically over. We're no longer in a position to characterize Vanir as a one-note team.
All right, as I believe we are going to be getting into some interviews now. We're going to be joined by Cyrax, the AD carry for UniQ. Obviously, it was a really rough loss for you guys there, but that early play in the bot lane, we saw some stuff for you there that was really, really positive.
Yeah, hello everyone. I mean, early game we kind of stomped them, and game was pretty over for them. But then we really inted when Trundle died, and they started Nash, and we kind of was panic and inted as well, you know. So yeah, it was our big mistake, and after it was really hard to come back because we don't have a really good front line versus their burst, so they can one shot like any one of us, you know.
And it did feel like a rough game, like watching it sort of move away for you guys. But I kind of want to focus a little bit on this Zeri Annie pairing that you guys went for in the bottom lane. It did get a lot of success early on. Is this a specific pairing that you think for you guys, or do you feel like the Annie was something that you were more just locking in, and then the Zeri was kind of separate from that?
I mean, I don't know how to say, but I think Annie and Zeri is really strong champs right now. But I think, I mean, I don't really wanna talk all my things, you know, how we can draft.
It makes sense.
It's just strong champs, you know, and we decided to pick it.
Yeah, and
I think we could do like one change, and game will be like 10 times easier, you know. But it's for top lane pick. But yeah. I think Zeri and Annie was working good, like early game. I don't know. We have like 2 carries and they cannot like one shot. It's really hard for them, and we just winning every 3v3, 2v2, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely what we saw for you guys. So, from a player perspective, obviously now you guys are unfortunately out of the playoffs race. What do these last few games mean for you individually? What are they about?
I mean, we just wanna win. Like versus Night's we already won, but versus Domino it was like I think kind of the same game like today. We was really ahead early game, but then we're throwing. So yeah, we just need to draft good these 2-3 games, I think. Yeah, we played versus Verdant, and yeah, try to win Verdant as well. So yeah, we'll try our best.
That's fair enough. Just put your best foot forward in the remaining games. Veteran, anything to add?
I mean, you talk about how you feel like you guys need to draft good. Clearly, your map play was a lot better today than we've seen in a lot of other games, and the eventual scores don't really represent how you basically win control of the game for like 22 minutes straight. When it comes to those drafts, though, is that something that you guys are having like a lot of meetings on? Is it the picks that you think are going wrong? Is it the order you think's going wrong? Is it the scouting you think's going wrong? Or what is it you think overall, not into specifics, that you need to change about draft in the last 2-3 games?
I mean, sometimes I feel like we have like misunderstanding how we should draft, you know, and we just drafting good until one moment, and then we fuck up our draft with one pick, you know. So yeah, and I mean, it's like one person thinks like differently, you know, from others. I mean, not one, like we are not on the same page on draft, you know, at this moment.
None
still,
of you are like
sadly
seeing eye to eye on picks, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Just misunderstanding how we need to draft.
Yeah, and obviously that is gonna put you guys in a rough spot. Well, Cyrix, thank you very much for joining us for a little chat today. Unfortunate loss today, but I hope that you guys can show some growth from this and continue to put up some stronger performances and maybe grab some wins in your remaining games. Thank you very much for joining us, mate.
Yeah.
And now we are going to be joined by Flash from Vanir, you guys, with your 5th win of the season now, continuing this sort of late drive for the playoff spot with a win today. How are you feeling?
I mean, I feel amazing. The Lingvi performance was really good today. He just 1v9'd. But also I really like, what I enjoyed the most from this game is our situation after we pushed them back from the Nashor, since it's the pretty similar, I would say like 90% similar situation to the case we studied from like 2021 World Semifinals, Damon versus T1. So it was almost the same, and we managed to get back easily to the game from that. And nothing to add more basically, and we are just fighting for the playoffs still.
Yeah, I mean, Dun1 T1, not bad teams to sort of learn from, to take things from. But I do kind of want to get your thoughts on where you stack up against Verdant, right? Because obviously they have been sort of at that 6-win mark. They have been in that 4th place spot, and you guys have had to sort of rise up from a bit of a lower position with the 2-0 week last week, and then obviously grabbing the win today. You are now just 1 win behind them. Do you feel like you guys are a stronger team than Verdant at the moment?
I mean, of course, especially since you could see the last week how Verdant having the advantage on the map were just matching us on 1-3-1 instead of going for 1 and just accelerating the game with the tempo. And I think that's why UniQ lost it today also, because they just matched us when they had amazing advantage. So I think teams just have to, I think especially the lower tier teams or the mid tier teams from the NLC have to learn how to do the line assignment, because they're just giving wins away for free. And I think it's not gonna be easy versus better teams, so we are aware of that. However, versus worse teams, I think it's so easy. And of course, we could see that we are just snowballing the game, and also it's the snowballing effect of Vanir. I would say that we are just getting better and better every week, so I'm really happy about this.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think Veteran, that whole idea about Vanir getting better and better every week is something that you've really seen.
Well, and the big thing about the fact that they're not just winning now by like snowballing and playing off of that kind of tempo, right? Like that's a really big thing. We've been talking about Vanir as quite a one-note team up until this point, but clearly they're not fully dependent on those early snowballs now. But I would have to ask you though, something we're still seeing from you guys is you are drafting composition that even though you're able to come back today because you guys just understand what to do when you're in control of the game, it definitely didn't feel like a composition where Zeri, Victor and Annie weren't going to be able to find ways to win fights later on. Do you think this is something that you guys need to look into in the future and maybe draft a little bit more with those kinds of scaling backups? Or are you fully comfortable with the way you're going right now, particularly with the strength of players like Lingui when it comes to engage?
I mean, we are just playing our own style. We know what we are doing wrong in the drafts. Also, I think, like on team meeting, we agreed like a few days ago that we want to ban Victor, and we completely forgot about the Victor. So I think this would change a lot, especially when it comes. Yeah, right. So it would change a lot on the mid lane, especially because was our prep. Looking at the enemy mid laner champion pool. However, I don't think we are scared of the champions. We also have a scaling champions, and we are really, I think we are getting better in the mid late game. So if something will go wrong, we'll just go like the Polish old EU master style, just pick scaling, Corki, Ornn, and win. You know.
Polish Corki.
Brilliant.
Never fails.
Never fails at all. Well, Flash, thank you very much for coming in and chat with us. Congrats on the win today, and I wish Vanir best of luck in their upcoming games.
Thank you very much.
The second interview there was less like wordy, but really interesting. To be honest,
that was very, very insightful. I like when you can talk to a coach and you can really get an idea of like the problems that a team is facing and what they're sort of working through over the week. We are going to be jumping to a short break now, but don't go anywhere. Natives are going to be trying to get their first win up against a dominant Riddle, who are currently stat 9-1 at the top of the standings. It should be a banger. You don't want to miss it.